Before we begin, if this resonates, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps us grow the conversation and meet this epochal moment together, where something new is arising in humanity.
So thank you all for being here. I'm Lisa Marcus. I'm your host today, along with Aviv and our team that comes to you to open up this amazing territory. Another Portals of Perception event, the soul, the spirit, and the self. And so thank you, Aviv, our Sherpa and our guide, who will offer the doorways and pathways to understandings into these amazing realms. So just to note, this is a discovery process. We don't claim to have all the answers, but there's a lot of great questions that we can get into together.
So yes, welcome to Portals of Perception, and welcome to Portals into the Soul, Chapter 7, the Soul, the Spirit, and the Self. So the way of today is a little surprising, because we've had a choreography in mind, and that choreography just turned upside down in the last 24 hours. And my contract with this work is that I follow the trail where it leads me. And so we're going to have something else that dropped into the beginning of today. The spirit of this, the intent of this, is to create a participative experience. One where we do not just transfer words or concepts, but rather where we can together be in an interior and mutual inquiry. And that's partly why the new piece that dropped into the beginning, which I will explain in a minute, is showing up. So I anticipate moments where we bring your voices. I anticipate that we will do a segment in rooms. I anticipate a couple of practices that we engage in: somatic, sensing, inquiry practices. All of this is part of today, partly because the intuition of this time is that we need to do more than share information, than share teaching. We really are at what I will describe as a threshold moment, where part of the threshold moment is that we are each invited to become our own teacher, our own leader inside. So my aspiration is to create an experience whereby even when I am sharing insights or perception or content, my voice can be listened to more as a narration of an interior inquiry, interior exploration that you're doing on the inside, where you are leading you into that exploration. And as I unfold the territory, the domains we will enter today, the soul, the spirit, and the self, it will become increasingly more important and understood as to why that is such an essential part of the approach. Okay, so what happened was that my plan was that I will describe in the beginning the context in which the soul work is emerging, this soul journey, where the premise is that it would be interesting to explore and inquire about the soul at any time, certainly 100 years ago, or 3 centuries ago, or 5 or 7 or 12 centuries ago. However, our premise is that this work is emerging now inside this threshold moment, and the more I contemplated what is the way to describe this threshold moment, the more I realized that it's going to be insufficient to just describe it. We need to offer an experiential access to try to experience this imagery, this actuality rather than imagery of a threshold moment. But so as a placeholder, imagine that when I use the term threshold moment, one way to feel our way into it is to imagine that there's one foot in the old world, in the old epoch. And that is, this foot is standing and anchored in a world that is very troubled. And depending on your point of view, you may be experiencing a world that is literally crumbling, where the modern project of the last several centuries is crumbling. And then it is a threshold moment because there is another foot which is in a new world, in a new epoch. So that was all I thought I would say in the opening. But then I realized that was going to become insufficient. It's insufficient for a context when we are truly exploring the domain of the soul, the spirit, and the self. So my aspiration is to lead us into an experience that will provide us more of an access. And I thought, what's the way to do this? And I realized that the way to do this is to actually offer us a pathway into the holy grail quest of mystery school from the beginning of time. Now that's of course an audacious aspiration for 10, 15, 20 minutes in the beginning, but I thought there is a way we could do this, which is what I'm about to try to attempt to do with your help, with your participation. Now, when we say the Holy Grail of mystery schools from the beginning of time, we mean by that the ancient mystery schools and also the more recent centuries, modern mystery schools. And if you said, but Aviv, what is the Holy Grail of mystery schools? The brief answer is that people throughout the ages have always known that over and above the typical pedestrian daily experience people have, there are latent capacities, latent faculties that in particular circumstances could be activated, could be switched on. And they aspired in all those situations to engage in the practices and the disciplines that will facilitate that kind of activation. I'm In a broad sense, I'm describing the various clear know, clairvoyance, clear hearing, clear seeing, all the various extrasensory perception, extrasensory capacities that are latent inside the human machinery, inside the human faculty. Some people experience those by gift or by inclination. Some people spend many, many years in a variety of disciplines and protocols to bring about the activation of those capacities, either inside a particular pursuit of healing or guiding or coaching or whatever, or because they are fascinated and passionate about the unlocking of the latent or subtle or higher perception capacities. Okay, so the way to consider this is that in the context of a mystery school, there would be a multi-year strategy, multi-year journey to facilitate these kind of activations. And it would often involve a fivefold strategy. Okay, number one, it will involve the domains of inquiry, and the domains of perception that you bring into your life, you bring into your focus. Secondly, it will typically involve the kind of practices that you cultivate, the ecology of practices that you generate on a consistent basis. Thirdly, it would involve the work you do on the sculpting of your own character. That's the work you do on qualities, on virtues, if you like, the ongoing reconstruction and refinement of the interior temple that you are. The fourth strategy would be the sentiment that you will choose to center your life on and imbue yourself with. And based on these four, right, the inquiry and perceptions, the practices, the character features and virtues, and the sentiments based on those four, ultimately the kind of connective communion processes that you fill your life with. So obviously what I'm describing is not a 3-hour workshop, rather a 3-year or more journey. But what I thought we could do is we could try to offer just the taste of an important starter practice. And this practice will become handy as we then journey into the soul, the spirit, and the self. And remember, just in the winding story I'm weaving now, as to how the choreography of today evolved, I'm going into all this story to be able to come back to describe the context for the soul's work, whereby I'm describing that the context is that we are standing with one foot in an old world, an old epoch that's dying, and the other foot in a new world, a new epoch that's emerging. Both are occurring within us all at the same time. And most of the time we are in the mysterious space in between. That means we hardly are able to translate or decode what is going on. We a lot of the time feel that the world that we were born and raised in, perhaps if you were born in the 20th century, but also if you're born in the last few decades, has become very strange and rapidly shapeshifting. And I will describe in a few minutes what I sense we could and ought to anticipate in the coming decade or two. And then holding and understanding that language of an epoch that's ending while you don't really quite yet have the language, let alone the grammar, of a new epoch that is forming inside you. So how do you navigate through that? Well, the good news is that the soul is totally equipped to navigate that kind of transition. That's fact number one. Fact number two, when we bring our intentional and attentional conscious presence to the change, we offer a booster situation for the soul, because we bring out the presence of our awareness, which is partly what we are trying to do today, especially by me describing the context for the emergence of this work. The third thing in this, it's a way of placing for all of us a context as to, because it's likely that mostly if you're here, you have likely engaged at some point or another with variety of soul journeys of one kind or another. And as I said, it would have been fascinating to engage with soul inquiry in previous centuries. This particular soul journey that's emerging inside the context of portals into the soul is emerging because of the premise that we are living now through a world in transition, an epoch in transition, a troubled world, where I am about to try to make a claim, which is that unless we find a way to engage some of our latent capacities and the soul nature, the soul and spiritual nature of our being, of our humanness, we're not likely to be able to unlock the intelligence and the capacities to confront the kind of challenges we already face, let alone in the coming decade or two. Okay, so if you're wondering, Aviv, you seem to be speaking on 3 conversations concurrently. You'd be right, that's what I'm doing. It's called loom processing. It means I'm evolving few plot lines all at the same time. There was a particular time in the evolution of script writing in Hollywood that they discovered this technology. They used to tell stories in a linear chronological way. If you go to the very old movies, you'd find that, but the fascinating thing happened somewhere through in the changeover from the 70s to the 80s, where some realized that the human capacity to concurrently process multi-dimensional reality was coming online, and that the way that was going to be expressed in storytelling was that you could develop few plot lines, few characters, all at the same time in a concurrent way, which is what I'm guided to do in today's journey. Okay, so what is the practice I'm proposing? So what they knew in those ancient mystery schools and throughout the ages, that the way to activate those latent capacities, some would call it psychic abilities, some would call it clair faculties, that this was in some way or shape or form associated with the activation of the pineal gland. So they developed some protocols to try to facilitate the activation of the pineal gland. Now, we of course now live in the YouTube, TikTok age, so people have no patience. People want to get a pineal gland activation in 10 seconds, if they can. And so a variety of processes and protocols have been offered in all sorts of places in recent years, some of which are totally foolish, and some are actually dangerous. What is dangerous is when people try to directly force anything about the pineal gland. Because the premise has always been that the latent perceptive and the latent sense organ faculties that could unlock for a person higher perception capacities, that those would come online, would be activated based on the energetic quality that they process. So it's back to front rather than they try to decalcify and activate the pineal gland. It's the energetic qualities, the conductivities, the potencies, because of that fivefold strategy that I described, the kind of inquiries and perceptions, the kind of practices, the kind of refinement of the inner temple by way of character work, and the core sentiments. Do you do this to be feeling good about yourself, or do you do this in service? Do you do this because you have decided to dedicate your life's work in some way towards the stewardship of the human project in any one of the 40 different modalities or spaces that one can choose to engage in: leadership, coaching, healing, facilitating, and many other ways. So we're not going to do any of that. But what I'm about to propose do is engage in one simple practice that we will do two variations of. And what it is to do with, what it is based on, it is to do with the understanding that when we bring our attentional focus to more than one point, and we're able to hold our attentional focus in more than one point, then in whatever it is we need to do in our interior operating system, in our interior wiring diagram, in our neural pathways, and in our subtle energetic system, whatever we need to do will begin to bring more of that three-dimensional hologramic activation. That is one of the scaffolds, one of the facilitation entryways into those faculties. So that's what I'm about to invite you to do with me, which is first, I'm going to guide us in a very simple way to hold the somatic attentional presence in one place, then in a second place. Okay, we're going to use the thumbs. Then we're going to toggle between them. Then I'm going to ask you to hold the registration, the sensation of both. And I'm going to ask you to try to pay attention inside. What is it you're actually needing to do to facilitate that experience? And then we will bring a third point. And it's not attached as to whether you can or you can't. It's an invitation to play with this after today. Obviously, this is something we do when we get to do a multi-day journey. We would be building this layer upon layer. In today's workshop, we will do this piece with thumbs, and then I'm going to try to introduce one other element, which is to hold together two and then three kind of states, inner states. So far, so good? Are we game to play? Okay, wonderful. That was the piece that dropped yesterday. All that I've done now in those 20 some minutes. That was yesterday evening. I said, you can't do the plan you had. You have to do this piece. Bring in the story of mystery schools and extrasensory perceptions and introduce this such that we then have a different pathway. So imagine we just ended one workshop in the last 20 minutes and with these practices, and then we will move into the soul, the spirit, and the self. Okay, so if you were to bring up your right thumb, and if you were to, you may actually look at it, or you may look at it with your mind eye. Think about, I know it's a problem when you do this, and some of your screens are activating the the Zoom gesture. Never mind. No worries. We see thumbs up. So try and concentrate your attention at the top of the thumb. There's something that happens because guess what? When we bring our focused attention, there is an energy that we direct to that point. And you may actually feel that the inner thumb is kind of, the blood is rushing to that point, throbbing. Or you may feel like there is a bit of an energetic pulse that you're experiencing there. Okay, try and see if you can actually move the focus just a quarter of an inch above the thumb itself, into the space where there is energy. Obviously, that those of us that are used to working with energies with hands, and either in healing modalities or others, you know that there is an energy that emanates out of every finger. Try and see if you can put the attentional focus just a little outside and see how it affects the sense that you have of that place. Might even cause a bit of a discomfort or cause like a sense of your whole right hand is flooded with energy, let alone the thumb. Okay, so relax. Now let's try and do the same with the other thumb on the left hand. So let's bring the attention to just the tip of the thumb. Can you feel this? You feel a sense of energy pulsating right there at the top of your left thumb. And obviously you're free to try this with other fingers, but I'm trying to keep it simple here. Okay, so now, who could actually feel that? Can we see showing of hands? Okay, most people are able to see, and it's okay if you don't feel it. It may take more than one practice. This is not some kind of a thing that you always feel right away. It takes practice. Now let's see if you can bring both and start with the right one. Bring your attention to the right thumb. Okay, wonderful. Now toggle, leave the right and move to the left. Again, you may do this by looking at them, or you may actually close your eyes and toggle with your mind rather than with your eyes. Might be easier this way. Search what works best for you. Okay, now I'm asking you to make a leap. Can you try and hold your attention, the presence of your awareness, with both? Can you try and pay attention? What is it you actually need to do to hold the attention with both of them? You may feel like you need to travel to a different center in the back of your head to do that. You may be feeling that you need to actually hold the entire space in front of you, and inside that space you get to hold the attention of these two points. Okay, relax. Let's shake a little bit the energy we loaded into our hands. Let's do something else now. Let's bring a third point. So if you were to take one finger and almost not touch your head, but only touch your hair at the very top, just so you feel that something is touching the top of your head at the area of the crown. Okay, and if you felt that, just that you touch your hair, you can move your hand and see if the echo of that registration is still there, and if you can actually concentrate that attentional presence to hold that place right at the top of your head, top of the crown. Yeah, your thoughts or your focus may wander, but you can bring it back to that point. And if you need to touch again, that's okay too. It's very light, just to give you the lightest sensory input. See if you can feel, and if you can bring your attention to, again, a quarter of an inch or an inch above that point, above the head. See if you can feel that space. Okay, very good. Let's try now to make a leap. Let's try now. You can bring your two thumbs and see if you can hold now the attention of 3 points. See if you can. I now bring my attention to the right thumb, the top of, and it's kind of numb now already from the amount of energy that I flooded into that thumb, and now the left. And now I hold the attention in both. And now I'm going to try and bring that third place at the top of my head, and it may be easier if you close your eyes, or you may keep your eyes open. See if you can hold an attentional focus, an attentional presence in those 3 places, 3 points. And if yes, what is it you need to do to facilitate that? Okay, very good. Relax. Let's shake all the energy from the hands. I'd invite you to play with this. This is almost opposite of a practice to the now traditional, and what I'm about to lead us into is almost opposite of a practice than the traditional mindfulness practice. Okay, in a traditional, brought to the West from the East, mindfulness practices, you're being trained to disassociate and not identify with thoughts, with feelings, and gradually create for yourself that space, that's spacious. Here, we are accessing a different kind of capacity. We are actually seeking to access spaciousness through multi-activation, where we hold the presence. In this case, we did it now somatically. I'm about to introduce a different kind of threefold experience, where we hold 3 feelings, 3 states, 3 experiences. And in our typical day-to-day cognitive function, we could only hold one of these. And actually 2 of the 3 that I'm going to be introducing, in a normal situation, you'd say, no, there's no way you could hold these, because if you hold this, you can't hold that one. But if you hold that one, you can't hold that one. So that's the condition, the brain functioning and the cognitive processing is often, these days, when we find ourselves in any circumstance that's polarizing, okay? In any circumstance where you get polarized with one perspective, and it becomes difficult to see any other point of view, you are at that point, if you like, activated in the lower gradient of the cognitive perception gradient of faculties. You're engaging in the lower range of that. Tells you something about what's happening in the world today, because mostly people are, certainly when you monitor the media, a lot finding themselves in a some kind of a polarized argument. And so, by the way, one of the practices adjacent to what we are doing is the various practices to cultivate a multi-perspectival awareness. Multi-perspectival awareness, fancy word to the idea, to the practice, that you look at an issue, you may look at a physical object and you may imagine the different perspectives, right? You may stand in front of a cathedral, an immense building, and you say, what does that look like? And you're seeing only one side, but you're actually cultivating the imagery of seeing what it would look like from other sides. It's a wonderful practice to do. So that's a multi-perspectival in the physical sense. In the attitudinal or sentiment or perspective context, you'd look at a problem or a polarizing issue, and you'd engage in the practice of truly empathizing with the people that are representing each of those perspectives. And then the inquiry will be, what is it you actually need to do in yourself to be able to inhabit these different perspectives? Right? It is, you need to cultivate certain capacity. That's my point, that this is the capacity that then scaffolds activation of latent faculties. Well, the fascinating thing is when you can actually hold some of those perspectives all at the same time in a concurrent way. Not easy. Sometimes it takes years of practice and development. Okay, so I'm now going to narrate very briefly, again, what in other circumstances we will need more time, but I'm going to narrate for us 3 states. The first is to do with accessing the reverence of the ineffable kind. And I'm going to give one pathway, but there are dozens and dozens different pathways, and different pathways will work for different people because we are wired differently. And so whatever I'm doing, if it doesn't work for you, find the other pathways that will for you be most conducive to generate the sense of reverence with the ineffable, whatever the word ineffable means for you. I will do that in a minute, and I will do this partly catered to us, people that have showed up to life through largely the 20th century, maybe some through the 21st century, where there has been a scientific orientation as the dominant perspective. So I'm going to have to navigate a reverence-evoking pathway that is inclusive of scientific awareness. That's the first one I will bring. Then I will give us a very short narration for a sense of deep peace, a place where all is well. And then thirdly, I will ask us to recognize that there are many places where all is not well. And I will ask us to actually hold these 3 experiences, these 3 places, these 3 interior ecologies, to hold them together and discover where they are placed inside your larger ecology. Okay, so far so good? Are we game to try that? Excellent. Thank you. So, here is a pathway to try to sense and register the extraordinary reverence with the ineffable. So, we pride ourselves, humanity, that is, that we know a lot because of the scientific research that has gone on over the last 4 or 5 centuries. But you know, at the end of the 20th century, I think it was 98, the 3 scientific teams, astronomers, that actually detected that the universe was not slowing down. The belief up until that time was that the expansion of the universe was going to slow down, and at one point in the future was going to collapse on itself. And Adam Rees and the other two teams, they discovered that no, actually the expansion of the universe was accelerating. They all got the Nobel Prize for Physics in 2011. And it was out of that what was called the standard model of physics was developed, where essentially we described a scenario where we believed that some 95% of the universe is made out of dark energy and dark matter, okay? That is practically it meant that standard model stipulated that we only know 5% of the universe. Some 75% is dark energy, another is dark matter. So we pride ourselves very much for getting to know the universe by 5%. Well, the recent discoveries from NASA with the new equipment they have in the sky reveals actually that was not true. We now know that we don't know even 5%. There's about 2 or 3 more percent that we haven't yet defined. And oh, by the way, it's very plausible that the standard model that we have prided ourselves for over the last few decades is broken. So now, while all that is going on, and while we humans pride ourselves for all that we know, for all intents and purposes we know, let us say in the good case, 5% of the universe. By the way, there is a radical implication from that. If we only know the universe by 5%, we only know ourselves by 5%. So if you know yourself only by 5%, where is the other 95%? Good question, right? Well, I will propose that not all the 95%, but some of the 95% is the interior dimension. The soul, the spirit, those realms. Oh, and that in order to get to the 6 and 7% of the universal discovery, we will have to actually change completely our equations of physics, because we will have to begin to find a way to also integrate the interior dimensions of the universe. Maybe we're getting close to that now with the advent of AI in the coming decade or two. But this is the pathway to recognize that while we know very little about the universe, this whole thing works perfectly well. We are right now, courtesy of this technology, each one of us in a different place on the planet. Some of you are literally opposite side of the planet to where I am. We're not falling off the planet, we're not flying off to space. All while this planet is whooshing, well, it's rotating around itself, whooshing around the solar system, while the solar system itself is whooshing around the center of the galaxy. So this multi-dimensional movement is occurring while life occurs here perfectly well. And if you dwell with it for a bit, that in itself is sufficient to evoke a tremendous sense of reverence to this. What is this? What is this miraculous place where we find ourselves? We don't know. We have all sorts of explanations, all sorts of ideas, but we don't really know. Then when you add to this, and I look outside the window at the beautiful trees outside here, we were given here this extraordinary technology, this technology called floral life, all the green life around us, all the trees. Right, science discovered for us that there is a photosynthetic process that enables the production of oxygen, but that's just a biochemical dimension of that. What truly happens there, right? Do we really think we know? We don't. Well, one way to consider it is that this planet, this celestial body we call planet Earth, has developed these organic beings, beautiful trees, through which with which she is able to perform her matrimony with another celestial body we call the sun, and they make love in the trees by way of merging solar energy with planetary energy, the byproduct of which also enables us to breathe, without which we couldn't actually live here. So the more you go down that road, the more I get filled with a profound sense that with all our pride for our scientific discoveries, we know very little about the world. Okay, so now can you find somewhere in your system, some people will find it around the head, the sense of reverence, a sense of awe, a sense of great wonder. What is this? Some people will find it through the sense of something expanding around the head. Other people will feel it in different places in your human system, maybe in the area of the chest, maybe in the way something surrounds your face or your head, but or you may not feel it in a somatic way. But I'm going to go quiet for a moment. I want you to find deep inside you a sense of reverence with the ineffable universe, unknown universe we're all partaking in. Okay, can you hold that, please, in some space? Maybe it's around your head, maybe it's in your left side or right side, maybe wherever it is. Hold that, because I want you to now bring a second inner state, a second inner experience. Whatever you've experienced in recent days or recent weeks or recent months, can you find a deep insight for, so again, for some it will be in the area of the solar plexus or your heart or somewhere else. Can you find the sense, the registration, deep inside where the long arc of things, of life in the universe is, all is well. All is perfectly fine. Can you find that inner location where you're able to access in your interiority tremendous sense of peace? Deeply inside knowing, hey, yeah, it's everything is just fine. It's all well. Life in the universe, life on planet Earth is wise. It knows what it is doing. And yes, in the bigger scheme of things, all is well. Can you feel that? We may, in different circumstances, would take a lot more time to just stay with that. But see, for me, I feel the sense of reverence for the ineffable around the head and the sense of deep trust that all is well right here in the area of the solar plexus. And now I'm going to ask you to bring a third state, a third condition. And I'm going to try and ask you to hold these three without a sense of conflict, but rather by discovering that your soul and your spirit and who you are in the self that you are becoming is so larger than any of those that you have the capacity to hold these three states together. So I'm going to ask you to now find, and you may place that not in the body, but maybe around the edges of you or further out. Can you nevertheless make space to acknowledge that while deep inside we feel that all is well, there are actually many, many places on the planet where all is not well, where there is tremendous struggle, where there is tremendous turmoil, where people are suffering beyond what humans should suffer. Can you find a place to acknowledge that and even find compassion without needing to negate the deeper inside you sense that all is well? Can those three inner states live inside the ecology that you are together, the cosmology that you are together? Thank you very much. So all that occurred because I felt that I wanted to provide an experiential access rather than conceptual access to the idea that we are truly experiencing a threshold moment, and one foot is in an old epoch that's dying, and it's dying inside us because we are part of the epoch that's ending. And another foot is in a new epoch that's emerging and forming inside us. And in the epoch that's dying, if you look around and you look for things to see things for what they are, and you're not sugarcoating what the case is, you're seeing that the modern project of the last few centuries is essentially breaking down, is essentially crumbling. We've got problems with the ecology and the environment. We've extracted a tremendous amount of the energy that the planet has generated over millions and millions of years. We've created a lot of toxicity around us. But it's not just in the environment. We've created cultural toxicity. We've created toxicity in our heads. Most of what presents itself as entertainment these days is actually designed to burn our energies, fracture, use up our energies. Because human beings in the 20th and the 21st century, we have trained ourselves to not be able to handle elevated energetic states. And we use entertainment to continually erode, use up our energies, fracture the sense of intactness, the sense of well-being, the sense of wholeness. That's what entertainment is, largely. And we've got, and I could do the list. I'm not going to do the list because I want to keep balance of these three states. I don't want you to lose the inner knowing that all is well. But my granddaughter is 6 years of age, and when I look at what's occurring with teenage girls and teenage boys, I'm very worried. All is not well there. We have suicidal tendencies with teenagers that we have never had in the history of humanity. And we can all say that it's to do with social media and smart devices, and that's part of it. So we could do the full list, and on other situations and in portals and portals into the soul, we've done the list. I'm not going to do the full list of all the different elements and dimensions of the meta crisis. But I will say this, we now have a new problem. After that, we will take a break, and then we will transition into the soul, the spirit, and the self. The new problem we have on the horizon, it's really not on the horizon, it's like here and now, is, so we are now in probably cycle 7 of the technological revolution, if you start counting, in the Industrial Revolution. And for all the exhilaration and excitement of AI, one of the byproducts of AI is that we're likely going to put out of work 20 or 30 or 40% of the population in the next couple, 3, 4, 5 years. This is in a situation where people were trained over the last couple of centuries to identify with who they are based on their work. People will meet each other and ask, what do you do? And they mean professionally. People take pride and build their identity about who they are professionally. And suddenly, in just a matter of a few years, a lot of people will be out of work, out of job. So you've got the socio-economic crisis, because how will they support themselves? And you have the mental health and psychological well-being and dignity crisis, because how will people find their sense of self? But you have underneath that a spiritual, ontological, philosophical problem that underlies that, which I've chosen to call the Solomonic test, the Solomon test. Because if AI agents are going to be able to do better than us humans most of what there is to do, we are facing a Solomon test, a Solomon question. What's the value of human life? In the 20th century, you were told that you need to contribute to society. And what that meant, you needed to contribute economically. That was the phase of Homo economicus. And if you got confused about that for a moment, you open the paper or you listen to the radio, or you watch television, and they started to talk about the consumer as though it was a person. And the consumer paradigm became the governing paradigm of the theology and the philosophy of the later part of the 20th century, and still today to an extent. But could it be that AI, if it's going to put us out of work, 20%, maybe at some point 40 or 50%, could that also be the very catalyst for the facing that humanity now needs, whereby to actually embrace that question and to begin to solve those other problems, some of which I listed, the other I did not, that we will need to re-embrace, reintegrate our spiritual nature. That actually the environmental problem, the breakdown of the modernity project in terms of liberal democracies and the structures of government in the way we have come to know them through the 20th century, that we see are now crumbling with variety of challenges in any country you choose to look at. In the US, in Europe, in the Middle East, China too. China was trying to do 3 centuries in one, and kind of winging it to be able to do it on the technological front, but is soon enough going to face that challenge as well. Strangely, India has a huge amount of problems, but perhaps the subcontinent can come in some way be more ready for this transition because of the legacy that is an imprint in India. But time will tell. All this is coming to a head in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. At a socio-economic level, we're going to have upheaval because we don't have the structural facility to be able to support people out of work. And there will have to be economic changes, social changes, contractual changes. All of that is going to have to happen. And all that is happening, by the way, where most Western countries are indebted in a way that they are not able to even service their debt today. But here is my point. Could it be that we are entering this phase of crisis and people are going to be sent home from work just to begin to re-engage with the interior inquiry of what is life about? What is human life about? Why actually are we here on earth? What's it for? Is there purpose in life beyond producing for the economy and raising the next generation, which is admirable? But is there more? And is there for more in all the perennial traditions that carried throughout the ages and all the mystery school lineages about the purpose of human life? Is there more to be embraced from that? And if yes, how might we go about it individually, personally, and collectively? That was my last question for today. We will end on in about now an hour in, so in about an hour and a half in. From now, the last half an hour, I'm going to ask us, what is it we can actually do to help each other on this spiritual soul quest? That's where we will end today. So, okay, that first hour was not planned. That all arrived late last night when I realized, we need to address the elephant in the room. We can't just talk superficially about this threshold moment, because in actuality, this soul spiritual work is arising inside that context. Therefore, by the way, the invitation in whatever I'm going to narrate after the break we're going to take here in a minute is, well, let's do this after the break. I want to now invite you, just as we transition into the break, and I'm asking Rob to play for us some music. I was going to bring this slide now. Let me bring this slide, and we will do both a bio break and the first opportunity to drop some thoughts into the chat. So one of the ways we describe the soul in some of the earlier chapters is that the soul is a cosmology of qualities. And qualities in that sense is, you could say even is a technical word, because what qualities in this sense means is an energetic nature, an energetic nature, a property of a specific kind. And I'm going to ask you to tune inside to your soul. So that means beyond the layer of the front brain, beyond the layer of psychology. These are some of the responses that we are first to access. Deeper, there is kind of a background hum. That's more where your soul nature is. When you tune to your soul inside the context of what we just practiced, and you sense into it, what's the one or two or three first qualities that it offers you back about that are present or that are active now? Is it the quality of care? Is it the quality of support? Is it the quality of curiosity? Is it something altogether different? Is it a sense of yearning? Is it a sense of vibrant vitality? Is it something fortifying with courage? Whatever it is, that there is no good or bad. I want you to listen inside. I'm going to go quiet, ask Rob to play for us a little music while we take this 8-minute bio break, and please drop 3 words into the chat that describe the qualities that you sense are perhaps active right now in your soul nature. We'll see you in 8 minutes, all while we are monitoring the chat. Thank you. Along with our website at portalsofperception.org, Portals is also available on YouTube and on all podcast platforms, as well as social media. You can become an active member and join the conversation in community events. And you can help us get the word out by liking this content and by sharing it with your friends.